Hi, Jesse.
Yeah. Colonel.
I won't let anything happen to it. Okay. Colonel. Hi, how are you? Good morning, everyone. Right now, we are in the midst of an extraordinary weather event that has just devastated communities throughout the Hudson Valley. I'm here in Highland Falls, but this is just representative of what we've seen, the devastation we've seen in Rockland and Putnam and other communities, where, as we've seen so often in the last literally 9 months, I say 9 months because 9 months ago, the heavens opened up and we had more snow fall in a 24-hour period in the state of New York than had happened in history. Literally a few weeks ago, we saw the skies again bring upon us some of the most unhealthy air from the fires just north of here in Canada than we've seen in a generation. And once again, the skies opened up and wrought so much rain, 9 inches of rain in this community, that they're calling this a 1,000-year event. It's only the second time ever that the National Weather Service issued a flash flood emergency. The last time was Hurricane Ida. My friends, this is the new normal. And we in government, working with our partners on the ground, have to work with our communities to build up resiliency, to be prepared for the worst because the worst continues to happen. You only need to walk through the streets and see the pain in people's eyes as they describe to me their loss, their fear, their anxiety. You meet Kathy, who was literally rescued out of her senior apartment by brave crews that came all the way from West Point, not going to foreign lands to save people, but right here in their own backyard. And I am so grateful to everyone from West Point for stepping up. I just spoke to the superintendent, and we're there to help them rebuild as well. We also lost an individual's life, a young woman, 35 years old, who came out saying that her house was taking on too much water, was with her dog, and her fiancé literally saw her swept away. Terror, devastation, right here, less than 24 hours ago. So I'm joined here by local leaders to give an update on the current situation, what we're anticipating going forward, and what residents need to do together, how we can stand up and using every bit of our power, mobilizing to fight the ravages of climate change, because again, these are unprecedented weather events that keep hitting us over and over and over again. So we must change our behavior as a planet, as a country, as a state, and in our own homes. And we're going to continue that conversation in earnest because we have to know that we have to do everything in our power to protect our citizens. I'm joined by Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse. He's done an amazing job. I appreciate his coordination. Our teams reached out even before the first rain fell, and he was ready on the ground, and he'll describe what his teams went to, but I'm grateful to all of them. I'm grateful for our local officials here in the village of Highland Falls. The mayor has joined us, Mayor Onofrio. We also have our Town of Highland Supervisor, Bob Livesey. Our local officials, mayors, supervisors, town board members, they're really the front line when an issue like this happens because these are their neighbors. This is where they live. Also grateful to have the strong support in this moment of need of our state senator, James Skoufis, who's joined us, and State Assemblyman Chris Ekus. Both of them are going to continue to be on the ground, providing all the resources we can make available from the state. I also want to commend the most incredible team of people who are, unfortunately, so experienced in everything from ice storms in Ulster last year to the blizzards in Buffalo to the unprecedented weather event creating unhealthy air, and again, once again, the flooding. Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jackie Bray, I thank you 1,000 times over for your dedication and the training that you and your members have gone through to be able to help us respond in these times of crisis. DOT Commissioner Dominguez, Again, we have been through so many battles together, and now her teams in real time are assessing, literally, whether or not there's roads and bridges and culverts that have been compromised, despite the fact that they may look clear for passage, and they work through the night to make sure we could bring these streets to some sense of normalcy, because people needed to get to hospitals and doctors and get to their jobs, and they worked tirelessly. And I'm grateful, but we have to make sure that before we open up all the roads, that our infrastructure is safe and sound. State police rescues, again, are legendary. Our state police, led by Superintendent Steve Nigrelli, were here on the ground. Our swiftwater rescue teams here in advance, anticipating the worst, and they were absolutely desperately needed as we saw cars swirling in our streets like this was a river. So, let's start with what we've seen, who I've spoken to. Just got off the phone with the FEMA administrator. She has offered all the help necessary, so the first step is assessment. Assess the damage. Assess the monetary value of the damage so we can put in our request for FEMA assistance to help the communities have the resources they need to rebuild. Also spoke at the White House, offered assistance in any way possible just minutes ago. Majority Leader Schumer called and said, whatever is needed with infrastructure dollars to help the rebuilding, also making sure that we let West Point know that the Army Corps of Engineers can be of assistance if there's rebuilding there as well. Senator Gillibrand and I just got off the phone. She's there willing to provide any support to help with FEMA's efforts to return dollars back to our communities. So we'll be putting in all those requests, working with our local partners to make sure we have an accurate assessment of the cost and the damage done. We also are dealing with simultaneous issues right now. One is the weather looks better here, but the extreme weather is continuing north. Rain is hitting Albany. It's also hitting the Champlain area. Fortunately, the bullseye of this storm seems to be moving further east. Unfortunately for the people who live in Vermont, but we're not anticipating this scale of damage in other parts of New York at this time, but that could change. Again, what we saw here, stranded passengers on Amtrak trains, more than 700 people stranded in Putnam County last night. My gratitude to the local teams on the ground to help people find shelter, get them buses. We are deploying buses to get people up to New York City, down to New York City and up to Albany during the heat of the storm. We also had thousands of workers on the ground to get the power back. I just ran into a couple that's having breakfast at Andy's restaurant. Eddie's cooking up the eggs and bacon right now. They're there because their power's out. They didn't look like they're in any hurry to go home and start messing up their own kitchen, so Eddie's going to get a lot of business here today. We might stop in afterward, but you can see his basement is absolutely flooded, but they have the lights on to make sure that people in this community have a place to go for meals because the power is out. We've been working hard with our utility crews. The key for a storm like this, when you have the advance notice, you pre-position the emergency crews. That's why we had 9,000 people in this region prepared, 5,000 utility individual workers who could go on the lines, repair the roads, and make sure that our power gets back as soon as possible. So they were very, very helpful. We also declared a state of emergency. I spoke to Steve Newhouse about this yesterday. We declared a state of emergency here, as did he, but also in the county of Ontario, where Canandaigua also sustained considerable damage. We'll be visiting there later. Also, let's give further updates on what people should do. We spoke about this. We warned for 3 days. We talked about it right before it hit. We talked about it during. Homeowners need to be prepared. You need to think about your escape route. You need to anticipate the worst case scenario where the floodwaters are rising in your home. What are your next steps? Where's your cell phone? Do you have it charged? Where is your flashlight? Do you have the batteries that are fresh in it? Have you made sure that if in case you are stranded for any length of time, you have food and water and medicines? You're not going to be going to the drugstore to fill your prescriptions during this kind of event. So go over a safety plan with the residents of your home. Remember your pets, remember your neighbors, and make sure that you get to higher ground before it becomes too late. So before I turn it over to Steve Newhouse, I just want to, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank the first responders who came out. And as much as it looks clear today, this was a frightening, life-threatening experience that they just came through. They put their training to use. They did not think about their own safety. They literally went up to cars that were swirling at risk of being washed away, and they knocked and they made sure someone was safe. They went into homes, they went into apartments, they went into businesses. They were on the ground. So from the community level on up to our state resources and our state teams, thank you. Thank you for making a dire situation. As bad as it was, it could have been far worse had we not been ready, had you not been here on the ground, and all the rescue efforts that were underway. So again, when you see the water on a street, don't assume you can drive through it. That is the #1 reason people die during a storm, is because they drown in their vehicles. 2 feet of water, 2 feet of water, which doesn't seem like that much, is enough to sweep a car away, and that's exactly what was happening here just yesterday. So abandon your vehicles if that happens again. But we've seen a lot, we've been through a lot, but this community and this region is resilient. They will build back, and we'll be there with them every step of the way to make sure they have whatever is necessary to gain some sense of normalcy after this incredible shock to this region. So with that, I want to turn the opportunity to speak and address his concerns and what his teams did over the last 24, 40 hours to our County Executive, Steve Newhouse. County Executive.
Thank you, Governor. The relationship and the cooperation between New York State, our governor, and Orange County and our emergency management teams has been phenomenal. I've told the governor I was so impressed with the New York State Police, New York State Department of Transportation. We got the calls at Orange County 911 in early afternoon yesterday that they had significant damage in this region of the county. We immediately responded. I came on scene. Our staff went to the 911 center to start implementing how we can start sending resources. We were in constant contact, the governor and myself, Kathy Bray, Jackie Bray from the Homeland Security, Tom Scaglione, the zone commander, Pete Sorigliano. I also want to mention that we also have our garrison commander, Colonel Bianacci. He has a huge responsibility here with thousands of lives that are dependent on him. The cooperation was great. I will tell you that the significant damage that we saw, like the governor said, many cars that tried to go for it through the water didn't make it, got stuck. I saw Army, active duty Army soldiers up to their bellies. We were walking to cars to make sure that people got out. They added to the damage that we had to do here. We had a number of people that had to spend the night here that were transient. The state roads the county roads, the state roads, the local roads were all closed. If you did not get into Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery, West Point, by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you were trapped here till at least midnight. The recovery of the young lady who passed away was in the bottom, when we discovered her remains, she was in the bottom of a ravine. It was very dangerous for the first responders that had to get her out of there. Myself, County Legislator Tatel was with me. We saw the debris falling on them as they tried to get her back up to Highland where we could get her back to the medical examiner's office. I cannot emphasize the amount of work that went in by the fire department here, phenomenal, EMS, phenomenal, all our law enforcement partners, the sheriff's office. What we're going to do now, I just want to give you a quick road forward. The New York State Department of Transportation, as well as Orange County Department of Public Works, will be assisting the town and the village to assess their bridges to see what is passable. We'll also be assessing their bridges. We had an emergency shelter open up here a couple blocks away. I have ordered that to stay open until people stop using it. We have ordered emergency provisions to keep it stocked. In the meantime, we had been using the firehouse on 9W as our operations center. That is going to get in the way of the fire services, so we are going to be opening up momentarily a temporary operations center at the Highland Falls High School, just a couple blocks up north of here. In the meantime, for emergency calls, 911. For non-emergency, we are asking people to call our 311 number so we can get to you. We will get to every person that needs help. We are prioritizing it for life and limb. Thankfully, those calls have gone down. But again, we have gotten a great response from our partners here. Our congressional delegation, from Senator Schumer this morning calling, Senator Gillibrand, as the governor mentioned, our local congressman, everybody's here is pushing for a federal disaster declaration because we're going to need it. Easily tens of millions of dollars in damage here. So with that, that's all I have to say. Colonel, do you have anything you want to add for West Point?
Yeah, I can say so.
Okay.
Governor and Steve, thanks for having us here. I'd like to start off by just extending our condolences on behalf of the West Point community to the town of Highland Falls and village of Highland Falls for the fatality that was mentioned from yesterday. That's extreme, and we do give our compassion and condolences to that. Just want to elaborate a couple things that the governor said and Steve said. This is a community effort. We're working together greatly. The lines of communications have been wide open, which has been awesome. I know our fire department has done a great job out here, and the support we got from the community on post has been overwhelming. We're also in the assessment phase on post, assessing our damage as well as off post here, and we're going to work at ways we can continue to collaborate to make this job better going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah. Any questions?
How many calls for help in this community? You mentioned there were several water rescues.
We had, this morning when I got to the 911 center, I came directly here, so I was here till late at night last night. So this morning we had, I think, over 50 that were significant, but I think that many of them were not reported. All night long I saw the fire department going house to house and helping people. And there was cars parked in 9W in the median being abandoned, or people sitting in them. Like the governor mentioned, there was people that were trapped in their car in 3-4 feet of water that stayed in their car. Those people all needed to be rescued by EMS, police, and fire. So I think the number of calls, you probably can't even count at this point, because you literally just stopped when you saw people needed help. And by the way, the Good Samaritans did wonderful work as well. I've seen a lot of great compassion here in this community.
Are there any ongoing search missions going on today? Door to door? Anything
There's no search missions for missing people or anything like that.
Steve, I saw your video yesterday, your emergency address. You clearly were visibly impacted and affected by what was happening in this community in your backyard. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you were feeling at that moment?
I mean, there was a lot of feelings of helplessness for people. When I showed up on the scene, the police chief was there. 3 of the police cars were underwater. When we went to find the remains of missing people, this impacts human lives. Her family was there. She's down on, and we're looking. The people are actively looking for her. So this is humanity at its best, and it's worse, and it's very difficult to get through it. But this community is resilient. We are totally united. Like I said, I am so impressed because we've been through this before. I hate to say we're battle hardened between COVID calls and responding to other emergencies. Jackie Bray and I talk personally on the phone. Tom Scaglione, the governor and I have known each other for over 10 years. That relationship helps when we're responding. When I can call the zone commander or the senior NCOs, that helps when we're trying to get assets here.
Talk about the worst devastation, 218, the images that were chunks of the mountainside, blown away.
One of the biggest things when we were doing the recovery of the individual that's deceased, I kept hearing what sounded like car hitting bottom, and I kept saying, "What is that noise?" It was pieces of giant boulders falling off that whole mountainside. So that's why it's really critical that we have engineers to come and give inspections on it so we know they're safe to pass or what they need to fix them.
On that idea, Governor, is there anything you've done with infrastructure in terms of small towns like this that we can change, whether it's, flood prevention measures, whether it's rebuilding bridges in a different way? Is there anything kind of forward-looking that you could do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right, and there are a lot of lessons learned even from Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Ida. We've seen these downtowns devastated before, and I've spent 14 years in local government. I go into a community, my eye goes right to the curb. I can tell whether storm sewers are going to be jammed up. I can see whether the curbs need to be redone. Now, these are good shaped curbs, but there are other ones that are very low that can be clogged with debris, and that can result in flooding. So I want to do an overall assessment of every community in our area that's been affected by this, but also going forward statewide, what we can be doing to continue giving the infrastructure dollars to communities so they can build up their own resiliency. Many smaller communities do not have the sophistication or the engineers on staff to do that either. That's where the state can come in and the county can come in and help with those assessments. But yes, money's going to have to be part of the solution. And we can't turn our eyes any longer to the fact that we have to build up areas, homes and businesses that are in low-lying areas are going to need to be lifted up. Otherwise, we're ignoring the reality that flooding is part of life now here in the state of New York, not just out in the Southwest and other parts that have always historically suffered from that. It is now part of the new normal for New York. The record snow leads to flooding, springtime, mountains, the streams are surging. You add in 9 inches of rain in a 24, 36-hour time. It is historic what we're dealing with. But also we have $4.2 billion from our Climate Act, which is also bringing money to communities to help build up that climate resiliency. This is my definition of what climate resiliency looks like. We have to build up the infrastructure in our small, most vulnerable communities.
You have a major piece of infrastructure that was either damaged or destroyed, and I might screw up this name, the Popologan Bridge. What can you tell us about that? It's my understanding it's over a gorge and maybe not the easiest of fixes.
So it's the Popolopan Bridge has been impacted by this event. As the governor said, this historic event, if you want to equate 9 inches of rain to snow, that's 90 inches of snow. So, I mean, it's historical. The difference is that you get rain instantaneously. So with the Popolopan Bridge, what you're looking at is a 100-year-old bridge that has literally withstood many an extreme weather event. This one, it has impacted it significantly. So it's closed now. We've got our bridge assessment teams. I was on the bridge this morning with our bridge engineers. They are looking at it from every possible aspect. It's going to take significant amount of time and reconstruction effort to get it back and operational, but it is a critical link, and we appreciate that.
Obviously, that road is not as busy as I-95, but is it
Correct.
kind of comparable to what Philadelphia just went through a situation?
No.
In terms of having a road that's used a lot by the locals, that's
It is.
really going to send them on detours.
It is very much used by the locals, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that not only do we have roads in and around the area that are open and available, but we need to make sure, as was stated earlier, that not only are we thoroughly assessing the roadways and the bridges, we need to make sure that they're safe before we even look at putting them back in operation. I can tell you the Popolopan Bridge is going to take some time to actually repair.
We just have just 2 other infrastructure things that you should be aware of. The wastewater treatment plant has been compromised. The DEC, like the governor has everybody here with us on station, fixing this, working with us to get a solution. My folks are here as well to help them get it back in operation. The CSX line is also down, about a quarter mile of it. What we have been estimated today, a couple days before they get that back in operation. So we'll be working on that as well.
I just want to reemphasize one thing really quickly. We will do everything, as the governor said, as safely but as quickly as we possibly can. We fully recognize the impact on the community and very much appreciate that. We will work as quickly and as efficiently as we can because we know how important this critical link is for the community.
Steve, you said tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions, easy with this infrastructure cost, absolutely.
Could that be a low ball? Or how?
I'm a CB, I'm a Navy guy in an Army town right now, but I'm telling you, I pay the bills in the county, we have $1 billion budget. This easily costs money. Governor and I, this is not our first situation like this. This costs a lot of money, so we're going to fight for it.
And also, just on the infrastructure question, that was the context of the conversation I had with Majority Leader Schumer. He wanted me to convey that if there's need for infrastructure dollars, that he will be there to support this. The administrator FEMA said they'll be there to support us, as well as the White House. So these dollars, I anticipate, are going to be the volume that are going to require us to be getting money out of the federal government to make sure that we're not short in resources. All right, last question.
Municipal water, are people with services right now?
We have the Department of Health. I ordered them to be here on station. They're here testing and making sure that people have, some places have been compromised, and we will put out issues as they needed.
Steve, will people be permanently out of Hawaiian Gardens for a while?
I believe so. They had to be evacuated. So, I mean, listen, this stuff is a very moving situation right now. We just got through trying to handle all the emergency calls. Right now, we're in the repair and recovery stage.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
out. Thank you.